The following was recorded in front of a live studio audience at the Studio 21 Podcast Café. This is the United Podcast Network.
Want to shake up your small business marketing? I mean, really shake it up.
Studio 21 Podcast Café.
Have you been thinking about doing your own podcast?
Studio 21 Podcast Café.
Would you like to take your business to the next level?
Studio 21 Podcast Café.
This is the golden age of podcasting, and it's time to stop thinking and start doing.
Studio 21 Podcast Café.
Get your message heard 24/7, 365, over and over again.
Studio 21 Podcast Café.
Welcome to the 21st century.
Welcome to the Studio 21 Podcast Café.
Here's the creator and host of the Studio 21 Podcast Café, David Garofalo.
Welcome, everybody, to the Studio 21 Podcast Cafe. This is a 21-minute or less weekly podcast to help you get your message out, grow your business, and build your bottom line. Let me help you bring your marketing and advertising into the 21st century. My name is David Garofalo. I've been doing podcasting since 2010, and I've created a six-figure income from doing a podcast. In the next 21 minutes or so, we're going to be talking about how you can help your podcast grow. And in this case, is your podcast a cost or an investment? We're going to get to that right now, so let's start the clock and let's go. Is your podcast a cost or an investment? So first, let's look at the difference between the cost of your podcast versus investing in your podcast. What are some of the costs associated with doing a podcast? If you're thinking of doing a podcast, as I do, that is you know that your podcast is a business, right? If you're thinking about doing a podcast, please think of it that way. Your podcast is a business. That's the way to start off with. If you're already doing a podcast, go back to square one. Think of your podcast as a business, no matter what. And if you do that, you'll realize that the cost of doing a podcast is so low. It's so low, it's almost free. In business, we call it a barrier to entry into a business. So you're going to start a new business, it's going to be a podcast. What's the barrier to entry into that? You think of that in any other business, and it's into the tens, hundreds of thousands of dollars. It could be into the millions of dollars. When it comes to a podcast, it's so low. What does it cost to enter into any business or industry? Astronomical compared to the almost impossible low cost of a podcast. The lemonade stand I set up when I was a kid was maybe cheaper, okay? But then again, I didn't get the proper licenses. I didn't do it right. And that business was over when the sun went down and my mother screamed and said, "Get in the house." It was over.
Right. You weren't trying to pay any bills with that.
No, there were no bills associated with it besides the lemonade maybe. I ran out of ice.
You weren't paying that.
No, I wasn't paying it either. So when it comes down to it, I would say the lowest barrier to entry business that there is podcasting. And it is a real business, and you should think of it that way. And to do it properly, it requires upfront costs that can include equipment, marketing, advertising, promotions, and more. Okay, I'm going to say that again. It includes equipment, which I know if you're doing a podcast, you had to buy the equipment, unless, of course, you come to someplace like Studio 21 Podcast Cafe, where we supply the equipment, but you need to get equipment. But then I added more things to that. It must include marketing, advertising, and promotion, and more. Ongoing costs include the same: equipment, marketing, advertising, promotions, and more. You need to do these other things if you want to treat it like a business, which you should. As far as equipment, you need a microphone. It actually doesn't work without it. You certainly could use the microphone on your computer.
We don't recommend that.
We don't recommend it. Those are the ones you can't listen to, right, Ed?
It's really tough, with all the echo going on.
Yeah.
And there's some very good inexpensive options for microphones for somebody who just wants to plug into their computer.
Yeah.
The Audio-Technica ATR 2100, very good sounding microphone, and I believe it's about $65.
All right, so you're off and running for $65. You started a business. You already had the laptop. You bought a $65. microphone, and you're going.
Plugs into the USB,
Right.
and it also has an XLR connection on it. So later, if you wanted to upgrade the other equipment, you can keep the microphone.
You could actually do it without headphone, though, right?
I don't recommend
Again,
that.
we don't recommend that, but
No, but it could be done. But
Yep.
everybody, if you're doing it yourself, a set of earbuds is fine
Sure.
for that,
so you can hear yourself talk. Imagine that, so you can hear yourself talk. When you don't do it, when you do it without having the headphones, then you do it with the headphones. You say, why would I ever do it without the
Right,
headphones?
and this ATR 2100 is kind of nice in that it has a headphone jack in the microphone.
There we go.
So you can actually hear what you're saying, and you get used to it if you go back and listen to your podcast and think about some of the mistakes maybe with your microphone technique. Then you can start to hear it as you're talking and make corrections.
How about those earbuds that have the microphone dangling down?
We hate those.
We hate those.
Well, because
we hate those because people listening hate those.
Well, inevitably, people end up moving, and the microphone moves across their clothing,
Yeah.
and it picks up a lot.
Yeah. So if it sounds bad, frankly, you won't be successful. Why won't you be successful? Because it will sound terrible and people will not want to listen. So you want to do everything you can so it's an enjoyable experience for the listener on the other end. It's all about them. Okay, it's all about what they're going to hear, and you make it as easy as possible for them to get your podcast, to hear it, and to enjoy listening through it.
As far as sound goes, you could go for absolute professional level sound. However,
Yeah.
it needs to just be good enough where it doesn't distract from the content that you're delivering.
But the fact of the matter is, it can be so expensive. As far as $65 is going to be all that different, right? And that $65 isn't per podcast. It's pretty much forever.
Forever. I mean, the microphones are pretty well made. I have one, and that's the one I used when we were doing the interviews at the anniversary party. Sounded perfectly good.
I have microphones from the 80s that are still in great condition, and they could take drops and everything.
Well, and they're still selling some of those exact same microphones today.
Recording and editing software. There are good free options out there like Audacity or GarageBand, but there are other options, including monthly subscription options. But you can go free if you want.
You can go free. I mean, Audacity is perfectly reasonable to use to get started. You know, you could go with something like Adobe Audition that has more functions if you need to do post-processing.
Yep.
But, that's probably $20 a month.
Yeah.
For a subscription to Adobe Audition.
Boy, I've started a lot of businesses in my time, and rent, electric, heat, gas, employees, this, that. You're talking $20 a month is nothing. Again, low barrier to entry into this industry. You need a host for your podcast, and that doesn't mean a host somebody side by side. You're my host of the show. Right. I'm talking somebody to host the podcast with unlimited storage. There are free stuff out there, but it's not an option if you plan to be successful, which you do, right? You're not doing this podcast with the plan of not being successful. So I would say scrap that free option.
You don't want to go there. Some of them, like Anchor, I think, is one that's out there now. They end up owning your content, and they submit your feed to iTunes, so you can't even get to iTunes to see the stats. Yeah,
it's a good name of the thing, an anchor, because that's what it is on your show. You think it's your show anymore. It's an anchor on your show. Right. It's holding you back. You're not going to be able to go forward. So the answer is pay a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, Libsyn has a $20 a month plan. Libsyn's one of the oldest, right? That's not unlimited, but it's going to hold you for quite a long time. And if you're still going, then you might have to bump it up for a few dollars more.
Yeah, so we're on Podbeam. We're actually executing maybe 18 podcasts out of our account, and it's not all that much.
No, and, so the ones you want to stick to focusing on would be Podbean, Libsyn, and Blueberry is another very good one.
Yeah. So you're going to need some artwork for your podcast. so that people can find it, and it should be something readable. We've had that long discussions about that on the Studio 21 Podcast Cafe. Also, maybe an introduction to your show, some music or something. So cover art, some music, and the music is not your favorite song. We've gone into that. It has to be royalty-free type of thing so that you're not knocked off the platform, which is what's going to happen to you.
Yeah, if you just do a search for royalty-free music, there are sites and free ones.
Yeah, and a little something that plays in the thing to warm somebody up to the show's ready to start. You heard a little something that went on here, less than a minute, introduced who I was, and then I come on and the show begins, right? Barrier to entry is low. Maybe a few $100s and a little time, and you're off and rolling, but it shouldn't stop you there. That's when most people stop when it comes to podcasting and say, okay, I'm in, and that's it. If you did that in any other business and you say, okay, you're in the restaurant business, I bought a stove, I bought some tables and chairs, okay, that's it. I'm ready to go. You're far from ready to go. That's where it begins. You have the equipment to begin your business now. The mic, the recording, the editing software, some artwork, some music, and any other costs associated with that is not an investment. You need those things. Those are needs versus investments. You need to have them no matter what. You haven't invested anything into it. Another thing you need for success is to invest in your podcast. Now, what do? For any success, you need to invest time and money into your podcast. Sure, but you could get lucky, right? Very lucky, and be one of those 1 out of a million anomalies that take off right from the start without any marketing, any promotion, any effort. But don't count on that because, frankly, it's not going to happen. It isn't going to happen for you. It didn't happen for me. You got to go out there with a plan, a business plan, and an execution of it. You need to market and promote your podcast, and that requires a cost. And that cost doesn't have to mean money all the time. It can, but there are ways to do it without spending money or very little. How much time and money should you spend attracting new customers to listen to your show? We're going to get to that in just 1 minute.
If you're in the area of Boston North into Southern New Hampshire and you're thinking about doing a podcast, there is a place you have to see. It's called Studio 21 Podcast Café. Located right over the border into Salem, New Hampshire, Studio 21 Podcast Café is a live, working, full-service podcast and vodcast, that's video on demand, studio. All professional equipment, professional producer, and total distribution of your podcast is done for you. Would you like search engine optimization for more people to find your business or better ranking on Google? Well, Studio 21 Podcast Cafe can do it all for you for far less than you think. Schedule a free 21-minute no-obligation consultation by going to www.studio21podcast.cafe. That's studio21podcast.cafe. Now, back to the program.
And we are back, and today we're talking about the difference between the cost of your podcast versus investing in your podcast. There are costs to do a podcast properly, upfront costs like a mic, software, some artwork, maybe intro music, but that will only take you so far. How will people find you? That is going to cost you time or money, or I think both. I like both. Twice the opportunity for success. And I'm not saying we got to spend a lot of money on it. I'm not saying you got to spend a lot of time on it, but doing both, working side by side, hand in hand, helping your success is double penetration, right? This is the way we can get to the top a lot faster. As for what you can do that's free, and will it cost you time and time? It's free, but it'll cost you time. But remember, time is money. My time is very, very, very valuable. I don't have all that much time, but I make time to push and promote my podcast. I call it the before, during, and after effect. So before the show, up to a few days before the show, I go onto social media platforms and remind all my, quote, friends, right? This is on social media, people that already know me, people that already like me, people that already trust me, on my social media platform, the people that I already know, that my next podcast is coming up, whatever day that's going to be. So I'll mention that to people that I already know and what I will be talking about and tease them a little bit. Come up with some sort of creative thing to tease them a little bit, maybe get them more interested than they would normally be interested in. So I'll do that before the show, days before the show happens. The day of the show, I say something like that again. I said it 3 days ago. Now, today, this morning, I'll say, coming up today, and this is what we're going to be talking about. But I add today. So let them know that it isn't the one I talked about 3 days ago. Maybe there's other people that are on the feed at that point that didn't see it. But I'll say today I'm doing a podcast. And if possible, especially if you have a co-host, I try to do it during the show. Not on this one. I'm here by myself on here. But on another show that we do, we have somebody that goes onto social media at the moment that we're going on. Right. We're on right now. Let you know we're live. We'll actually do it on Facebook Live, and we'll go on live. We've gone on live before the show has even started and saying the show is going to start in just about 2 minutes. Look at us. We're getting ready for it. Blah, blah, blah. It's a commercial, and we're getting it out, and that is still to before or even during the show. We've done it at breaks. We've gone on breaks and jumped on at break, driving people over to our show. So we're working it, and again, zero cost. Takes a little effort, takes a little time, takes a little planning, but not a big thing at all. Do it before and during, right? So we got the before, during. Now the after. I say, here it is. Just in case you missed it, here is the podcast. Here's a link to the podcast. Here's a link to the vodcast, the video on demand segment. Here it is, letting everybody know, again, on my social media, the people I already know, here it is. Rinse and repeat. Every week, do the same thing, before, during, and after. Before, during, and after. But you're marketing right now to the people that already know you, like you, and trust you, the people you already know. But investing in your business, time, and some money. Add to that some marketing and promotion that'll let you get the double penetration I'm talking about. This will cost you a little to do, but it'll be worth it. You're going to drive new customers in, right? Facebook ads. Google ads. Yeah, inexpensive.
The other one people seem to be having some luck with is Overcast, doing some advertising there. That's one of the most popular for
podcasting.
Apple Podcast Catcher.
Anything you can do to help drive new customers or new listeners in this case to your business.
And like anything else, you want to track that, right? And see, okay, well, did this make a difference?
Right.
Because just because you tried one thing doesn't mean that something else won't work for you.
Yeah, and what we're trying to attract is people that don't know you at this point.
And so the important thing is do one thing at a time so that you can see how it reflects in the numbers. If it's not working for you, okay, try something else.
I agree with that, but a lot of people, the unsuccess that happens to a lot of people is the short time. Don't think you're going to put out a $20 ad and see a major change. Do a $20 ad 10 weeks in a row, and now you say, okay, what do we have here?
Oh, yeah. I mean, you have to stick with it, but my point was more don't do multiple at once because then you can't tell what's driving the audience.
They say when it comes to advertising, we know 50% of advertising works. Which 50% is the problem? Exactly. We don't know which part is working. So pick a budget and stick to the budget and go for at least 2 months and check the numbers. But go at least 2 months. Don't go 2 days and say, well, that didn't work, because guess what? It's not going to work. Putting an ad in a newspaper in one time and saying, okay, let's see what that ended up doing, the answer is nothing. Putting an ad on the radio or TV one time and saying that doesn't work, of course it doesn't work. It's repetitive over and over again that'll build. Sometimes it takes people 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 times before they act on the advertisement they're looking at. That's why you see a company like Coca-Cola advertising over and over and over again. Coca-Cola, you know what Coca-Cola is. Yeah. Do they need to do an ad? The answer is yes, they do. At that time, determine if it increases if you should be increasing your investment or not. I say this because if you have a slot machine and when you put $1 in, it gives you $2 back. When do you stop putting $1 into that slot machine? The answer is never. You see that it actually works. Do more of it, not less of it. It's working. Do more of it. Now, I know you're not getting dollars back. You're getting listeners back, but we go into monetization at that point. The chicken and the egg, which one comes first? You have to build an audience before you can monetize your show. You can't do it the other way around. It's impossible. If somebody buys an ad, they're out of their mind to buy the ad with you, or they're a good friend that's just doing it out of the love and goodness of their heart, because it's not a good investment for them.
It's like any other business. You don't open the doors and become cash flow positive on that day.
That's right.
I mean, the good news with podcasting is you're not investing a lot more beyond the original, right? Another kind of business, you still got rent to pay, electricity.
Right. So it's so little upfront cost to do it. Now sink a little money into promoting and advertising your business. For the next your next listeners are on the computer, right? They're listening to the computer or their phone, and that's where you're going to find them. So while you are attracting new listeners, it's important not to forget the ones that are already listening. So I don't want to say this, that, new listener. It's very important not to forget the ones that are already with you, because if you're losing some and you're gaining some, your net is nothing.
Treading water. And I think the other important thing is word of mouth advertising. If you have a really engaged audience, they're much more likely to start sharing and recommending you to people they know.
And it wouldn't be a bad idea, just in case they don't think of it, remind them, ask them.
If you enjoy our podcast,
please share it.
Yeah.
Do me a personal favor and please share it. If you know somebody looking to do a podcast, been talking about doing a podcast, please take this podcast and share it to them. You'll be giving them a gift. And you'll be helping me out at the same time, because maybe they'll become a customer here at the Studio 21 Podcast Cafe, or anybody that I advertises with me or something. So if it's worth something to you, it's worth something to your friend. If you think the content is good, that's important too, because you can't put out crap and say, why is my business failing? Your food is terrible. You're advertising your restaurant a lot, but the food is terrible. Well, that's not going to work either.
No.
So content is king also. Promote the ones that are already listening to you and ask them to share. That is how things go viral. And you talk about the topic on another session next week. We'll get to that viral thing next week. Here at the Studio 21, we can help you with all this. That's what we do. And we're here to help you. Are you too busy to do it all? You probably are. We can help. We'd love to help and would love to work with you. Contact me at dave@studio21podcast.cafe. That's dave@studio21podcast.cafe. Schedule a free 21-minute meeting with me. Let me show you the studio, and we'll talk about your thoughts and plans, and I'll even buy you a cup of coffee. Next week, promotions for and on your podcast. Okay, we talked about some marketing. We're going to talk about promotions for and on your podcast. That's my 21 minutes or less, and we are out of here. You've been listening to the Studio 21 Podcast Cafe, live from the Studio 21 Podcast Cafe on the United Podcast Network.
The views and opinions expressed by the hosts, guests, or callers of this program do not necessarily reflect the opinions of the Studio 21 Podcast Cafe, the United Podcast Network, its partners, or affiliates.